We are here with Brooks Pierce, who is the CEO of Inspired Entertainment. And before we begin, a personal note. Brooks happens to be, as am I, a Delawarean.
That is true.
And there are very, very few of us. And I'm reminded of the fact, Brooks, that it's a little known fact, actually, that God made only a handful of perfect people. Delawareans.
I like
the rest
that.
of the world is.
I like that. You know, I'm going to take that forward. I appreciate that.
Brooks, you have been COO of Inspired for some years, and you have been fairly recently become CEO. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
And then maybe a little bit about what you've accomplished in your short time and what you hope to accomplish as CEO.
Sure. Well, maybe to put it in context, and it'll come back to Delaware, that's kind of where it all started for me with a small company called Autotote, which you probably know very well, back in the early 90s. And we took Autotote and ultimately built it up to what has become Scientific Games, both Scientific Games on the lottery side and now Light Wonder on the gaming side. From there, I left and went to become the managing director of the Americas for Aristocrat, and had a nice little journey there because a product called Lightning Link was just coming in, and I kind of rode that wave for a few years, and then decided I was living out here in Vegas and decided that I wanted to get back to the East Coast. And Lauren Wheel, who you've interviewed many times, and who's been my business partner for 30 years, asked me if I would come work at Inspired. So I came and I've been the CEO for the last 4 or 5 years, and then at the beginning of this year, elevated to CEO.
Right.
And in terms of where Inspired is and kind of where we're going, I just took a look at our booth, and hopefully everyone will go by and take a look. But you know, there's a couple things that are worth seeing there. Virtual sports, which is kind of the product that we're most well known for. And we'll be showing some exciting stuff today with the NFL license that we, actually it's a sub-license, ironically, from Aristocrat. But we announced yesterday a licensing deal with the NBA. So now that's just another kind of licensed brand for our virtual sports, because really North America is the big push for us in the virtual sports business. And then when you do your booth tour, we'll be super excited to show you a new, what we call a category, which is called hybrid dealer. So this is the combination of really using our virtual technology and live dealer to make a product, or really a system that allows you to basically look at a live dealer, but it's simulated. So the wheel is simulated, so we do an RNG, but it's a super exciting development for us, and we just announced a big deal today with BetMGM. So got a lot of interesting things going on at G2E.
We'll talk a little bit more about that in
Sure.
a minute, because I'm kind of interested in your path, as it were.
Sure.
You know, I remember years ago going to ICE shows in London and meeting with Luke Alvarez, who that Inspired was his company initially.
Right.
And he would show these displays of the virtual sports.
Right.
And you guys, in a sense, own that piece of the business. And I know that Lauren has talked about how virtual sports can be 10 to 15% of a market in the more mature markets. And so, you know, he uses that as a rule of thumb for what its potential will be in other markets, including North America.
Right.
Can you elaborate a little bit on where virtual sports is, where you think it can be, what kind of a contributor it can be, and maybe lastly, how defensible is it if the big multi-billion-dollar companies decide to enter that
Sure.
space?
Yeah, well, virtual sports is the flagship. When you saw it with Luke, to give him credit, he was the founder of the company, and it actually started way back when there was a foot and mouth disease in the UK, and some of the bookmakers needed product, and they came to Inspired and said, you know, could you do something like, they called it back then cartoon racing, and from that it's evolved into full-blown CGI. When we did the NFL game recently, and when we did a hockey game, you literally have everyone out in wired up with sensors, and you really go full speed. So I, would encourage everybody to go take a look at the product, and you'll see it looks incredibly realistic. But since it's virtual, there's many things we can do, bet types and so on and so forth, to show the product. I think in terms of the kind of the market size, yeah, around the world, and virtuals is relatively new in North America, but pretty much every market we've ever gone in around the world, be it Italy, be it Greece, the UK, Morocco, Turkey, you name it, it has really taken off kind of like a rocket. So what we hope to see is in North America, and one of the things I talked about before with the licensed brands, is we want to have sports that really relate to the American sports betting player. So now having a virtual NFL game, a virtual NBA game, will, obviously it's a business that's grown dramatically. I think we've shown kind of in the 5 years I've been there, it's probably gone from probably $10 million in EBITDA to $40+ million in EBITDA. So it's on a pretty high growth trajectory, but really North America is the land that we really need to take forward.
And your potential, or not potential, but your, I guess potential could be a word, prospective customer, I guess maybe another way to put it, can be everybody from a big casino like the Venetian,
sure,
down to the corner tavern.
Yeah, and so really the two verticals that we look at are gaming, and that can be retail-based gaming or it can be online gaming. So our online part of virtual sports has grown dramatically. Obviously part of it was COVID, but it's really actually sustained and even grown from that level. But yeah, to your idea of a retail, certainly, in the sports book here or in your local bar and tavern, that's how it's done in the rest of the world, whether it's a bookmaking shop or whatever. But so there's a number of different vehicles and venues for people to enjoy the sport, and it's really complementary. So when people are going, if they were betting, if you were here on Sunday and went into the sports book and saw everybody betting everything and baseball and everything else, but this is a product that's a complementary product, and there's an event going off every 2 or 3 minutes. So people, if they bet the Eagles, hopefully you're an Eagles fan, but if they bet the Eagles and they're waiting for the outcome of that game for a couple hours, virtual sports is a nice filler opportunity for people that want to continue to have action. So it kind of fits nicely across the spectrum of both retail and online.
And what happens if one of those multi-billion-dollar competitors decides this is a tremendous potential in this market, we're going to enter?
Well, there's a couple of big ones that are already in it. Playtech is in it, Sportradar is in it. But there's a couple things that frankly I think have separated us. Obviously, it's a very key part of our business. I think from a product perspective, certainly it seems that it's resonating with the players on a worldwide basis, and with many of our customers because of the kind of the breadth and depth of our offering. We offer 15 different sports, and we have a bunch of different kind of games you can play in each one of those sports. So typically, when we go to an operator customer, we'll ask for an exclusive and say, okay, well, if you want the virtual sports from Inspired, you're going to have to sign an exclusive deal. So that's worked out quite well for us, and we have over 200 customers on a worldwide basis. So we've been doing it a long time, and we wouldn't be shocked to see some competition, but we think we've positioned ourselves pretty nicely.
You had mentioned earlier this new game that you have, this hybrid live dealer game.
Right.
Does this put you in competition with Evolution?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think it's a different thing. We think we've found a kind of a unique niche. I mean, the issue with live dealer is it's expensive to get started. There's a lot of costs with studio. There's physical issues. We think that number one, that goes away with hybrid dealer because this is really a virtual thing. So in essence, what we do is, we film croupiers doing the action, but then the wheel itself, if it's roulette or if it's a big wheel, is virtual. So it looks exactly like what you would expect, but you don't have the big startup costs, you don't have the big operating costs with all the labor. You can change games on the fly, you can change the look of the studio if you want to. You can add interesting, unique Bonus features, one of the games that just went live with MGM. So when you get into the bonus, it actually shows slot machines coming out of the fountains, which is just something you can't do with a physical studio.
One of the things that Lauren said in one of our interviews some years ago was that he feels like the old plumber, that's the one thing he knows how to do, and so he keeps doing it. And in some way, and he likened that to Inspired, and in some ways that has been what you've done. You've entered markets that you have had success through scientific games, for example, with such as the VLT market in the UK and that kind of thing.
Sure.
One of the areas that obviously scientific games was very successful with was lottery.
Yes.
And you have entered iLottery in the Dominican Republic, I believe, with the eye of that being perhaps a starting point for iLottery elsewhere. How is that experiment going? What are your prospects? And just generally, how is business in some of these other more traditional areas?
Yeah, I mean, so maybe I'll answer it slightly differently in that, the digital part of our business is the part that's growing the fastest. It's got the highest growth rates. It's got the best kind of stickiness. The margins are the best. So if you look at our iGaming content, obviously virtual sports is largely a digital business. So that's really where the focus is. We do have a very big retail-based, land-based business, but digital is really where we're going to go. So we see iLottery, obviously Lauren's history and my history, we spent a very long time in the lottery business. We think there's great opportunity as iGaming has proliferated. We see iLottery will also proliferate, and the skill set that it takes to be able to develop winning iGaming content is very similar to what it takes to make iLottery content. So what we've done in the Dominican Republic is, first thing we had to do was build a platform. So we have an iLottery platform, which again gives us an opportunity as we come into North America, we can start bidding on iLottery platform business. But the main focus for us is going to be content, because that's really what drives our entire company, whether it's virtual sports, whether it's hybrid dealer, whether it's iGaming, whether it's VLT or iLottery. It's all really about the content.
If you look at the stock price, and you compare that with your growth metric, with what you're achieving, plus the growth that you have on top of that, there is clearly a dislocation between your value and the stock price. So I guess that raises one question of capital allocation.
Sure.
What are your priorities in that area, including for shareholders?
Well, you probably don't talk to anybody who doesn't think that their company is properly valued, and we're certainly in that camp as well. In terms of capital allocation, we've publicly stated we've been buying shares because of this dislocation, as you mentioned. We typically try to reinvest in our business. So hybrid dealer is a perfect example of some reinvestment that we've had in the business. But again, you know Lauren very well, and you know his history, and he and I have been together for 30 years, and we've done a lot of M&A deals throughout our lives. And we continue to look at opportunities because, exactly as you say, we're generating plenty of cash. We've got cash. So we spend a bunch of time looking at opportunities, primarily in the digital space. But we look at a lot of different businesses. So we have a good plan of, look, if we need to buy back shares, we will. We'll reinvest in the business. But if the right opportunity came along, I think we would be active.
Great. You mentioned some of your products already at your booth.
Sure.
Recap a little bit. What are some of the things that you believe people absolutely must see at the Inspired booth this year?
Yeah, well, for sure they have to see hybrid dealer. I think it's kind of a category in and of itself. So I think when you go up and you'll see, it's obviously the dominant part of our booth, and we'll have lots of demos of customers so that they can see, because the live dealer space, as you well know, is growing pretty dramatically, and it's a kind of key offering. Obviously, the latest, greatest in virtual sports, both our NFL license, and we're showing some early stages of the NBA license. but also our VLT business. We're getting traction in North America. You wouldn't see our products upstairs, in the Venetian or Palazzo, because that's not really what we do. We're server-based gaming. We're distributed gaming. So you would see us in a bar in Illinois. You might see us in a province in Canada. And so our VLTs are there, and probably the most interesting thing that we've done in the VLT space as of recent is we introduced a new game to our customer in Western Canada, Space Invaders. So it's a legacy licensed title, but the unique feature is it has a leaderboard so that people, if they're going from place to place, can track how they're doing, like the old Space Invaders game. And kind of almost immediately from launch, which Western Canada had never seen this, the game shot right to the top of the list. So again, it comes back to content and across all the various forms, both physical and digital. That's what we do.
Great story. Anything else you'd like folks to know about Inspired?
No, I think it's worthwhile coming by and seeing the booth. Relative to some of these booths, we're not quite the size and scale, but as you well know, the business has been growing very nicely over the last 5 years, and we've got tons of opportunity, and hope to report back on our progress next year.
Okay, great. Brooks, thank you.
Frank, enjoyed it.
An inspiring story.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, appreciate it.